Reddit, what is the worst wedding you've ever been to? What made it bad? The bride's aunt died on the dance floor while dancing. Edit, to add to the story, she fell down, and the DJ stopped the music until EMS arrived. They took her away, and when the music resumed, the DJ selected Bryan Adams' Heaven as the next song. I still remember the WTF dude look people were giving him. My cousin's wedding. I was about 7 or 8 and vaguely remembered my grandmother grabbing my brother and I and leaving. I remember being mad cause I didn't get any cake, didn't get to dance, nothing. When I got married this year and was worried that my wedding was going to be a SH show, I was finally given the details as to why Gram made us leave so early. My cousin was not in contact at the time with her birth father. He showed up to the reception anyways. Everyone more or less tolerated him for the time as no one wanted to be the one to ruin my cousin's wedding. At some point, he made a pass at my mom and said pretty nasty comments to a 14-year-old girl that was there. My mom let the comments he made to her go, but the father of the 14-year-old girl did not. He punched him in the face. When he got punched, he fell backwards onto another lady, whose husband in turn jumped on him. It turned into an 8-person brawl including my dad and one of my cousins. No idea how my dad or cousin got involved, but alcohol was a factor. So where was my cousin, the bride, when all this was going down? She was in a truck with her new husband doing a line of coke. 12 people, including my dad, one male cousin, my cousin the bride, and her new husband all got arrested at her wedding. Her and her husband were caught doing blow when the cops showed up for the fight. My grandma realized something was going to go down when she saw my cousin's dad and the first guy start fighting and got my brother and I out of there. I have a pretty trashy extended family. Edit for clarity. 8 people got arrested for fighting, 4 for drugs. I've never been to a bad wedding, but I've been to weddings with bad moments. One of the worst was a Catholic wedding where the priest was cracking sexist jokes, covering horrible stereotypes. He talked for almost 30 minutes, and it was like a terrible stand-up show. He said things like, as we all know, men and women are different. Women love shopping, and men love working with their hands. So men, when your wife goes shopping and buys you new stuff, just know that's what women are like. I mean, women, am I right? Men, when you come home from work and the kids want to play and your wife wants a break, remember she's been home with them all day and need a break too. Men and women's brains are different. While men's brains are organized and logical, women's brains are like a bowl of spaghetti. So when you're having communication problems, just remember you love spaghetti and it makes sense to her. My husband and I were trying really hard not to laugh. Other than that, it was a lovely and super fun wedding. This is odd, but I'm going to say mine. This was because of my wife's family. We wanted to keep the wedding very small. We were very young and some thought we were too young to get married, so this was the reasoning for keeping it small. I had my parents, brother and 4 friends. My wife invited her parents, brother, and grandmother. Her grandmother took it upon herself to invite the entire side of my wife's family. We had over 100 unexpected guests that acted as if they were insulted that they had to be there. The good news is, my wife kicks ass, going on 15 years. Really hate people who take it on themselves to invite people to events they are not even in charge of. My cousin recently got to visit after being away for 9 months in the Navy. He just wanted to have a quiet guys weekend up north, fishing with me, my dad, and his dad. Our aunt found out about it and invited all of the extended family over, 30 plus people, to my family's tiny cabin. My cousin felt bad for imposing on our family, so he cancelled and ended up spending his vacation mostly by himself. A coastal wedding in England. In January, the weather here is unpredictable at the best of times and the bride and groom decided to have their wedding at a castle right by the sea. Of course, it being January, the weather was atrocious, high winds coming directly off the sea and pissing rain all day. It was freezing and the reception was in a marquee. There were very few heaters. I remember I specifically bought a new outfit for this wedding and was able to wear it again to the next one because I didn't take off my coat the entire time. It was hideous. Edit, the wedding was hideous, not my outfit. I was at a dry wedding where the main theme was books. You were assigned to read a book prior to the wedding and were sat with people who read that same book to create conversation. Interesting idea, but a majority of people aren't going to do it. People were also purposely not put with people they knew, in attempt to make people socialize with others. Basically all we did is make a few sentences about how we didn't read the book and left after being served an inedible dinner and headed to a bar. Who doesn't love a wedding with homework? Don't worry everyone. I brought notepads and laminated my answers. It was actually a really nice wedding, but it was an outdoor venue, and it was unseasonably cold, and it was raining. The venue where the wedding was held was outdoors, but it was like a huge covered patio, like even enough for the 120 to 150 guests to have seats under the roof. Anyway, instead of the seasonal average of like 65 to 70, we had 45 with wind and rain. Even if my tux with the jacket and all, it was chilly. The bridesmaids were shivering. The rain was blowing in because the patio was covered, but there weren't walls or anything. I love the idea of outdoor weddings, but I don't think I'd do it. I've been to 4 and only once has had the weather be cooperative. I went to a wedding for distant family relatives because I was guilted into it, and it was out in an open field. At the end they didn't have enough to pay the catering, so they quit on the spot. The bride then made an announcement that everyone please stay and help clean up. She wanted us to stay and break down tables and chairs, carry the leftover food back up the field to a building where it was all prepared, break down the decorations, etc. At this point all we had were those hanging lights to see, and it was getting dark and cold. Everyone walking around was just digging up the grass and making it muddy. I carried a chair up the hill and jumped in my car and left. I've never heard from them, and I don't care. Went to a low-cost wedding. It wasn't the low budget that made it bad, but several things stemming from that. They never specified that it was a casual wedding to anyone other than close friends and family. The invitations were pretty fancy looking, so I went out and bought a simple yellow sundress because I didn't have anything nice to wear at the time. I showed up overdressed. Most people were in t-shirts and dirty jeans. The other 1/3 were more dressed up than the entire wedding party. It was at a public park. It was crowded, and there were dogs shing everywhere, and one couple in a very loud argument that you could hear across the park. The reception was held in this tiny community room you could rent. It stunk like cigarettes. Most of the guests left the ceremony and went directly to the reception because that's what the invitation said to do. After an hour passed without the bride or groom showing up, some caterers wheeled in some food and left. No one wanted to start eating before the bride and groom showed up, so the food just sat there getting cold. Another hour went by without the couple showing up, and eventually people got hungry enough to just say F it and serve themselves. I'm just being honest when I say the food was absolutely disgusting. Vienna sausages in a now cold, sweet sauce, wilted veggie platter, cold canned chili. There also wasn't nearly enough food for all the guests they invited, so by the time the people in the back of the line got up there, nothing was left. 2 more hours passed before the bride and groom finally showed up. So that's 4 hours we were all sitting in this tiny stinky room, with no music, no dancing, no nothing. 4 hours. Once they got there the bride and groom just went over to their table and sat there. It became apparent that nothing was actually planned for the reception other than those 3 cold trays of food for 50 plus people. At that point me and the group of people I came with decided to say congrats and leave. I don't even know why we stayed for so long. And yes, they are still happily married 10 plus years later. It was just a very poorly planned budget wedding. My cousin Jeremy and his wife had an insane clown posse themed wedding and tied the knot in full clown macabre. The guy doing the ceremony waved a hatchet around instead of a Bible. My girlfriend and I were the only ones dressed nicely in a room filled with fat, chain-smoking, sweaty ICP-attired people. Edit. I forgot to mention that when the groom kissed the bride, everyone cheered woot woot over and over again. Vegan wedding. The food menu was only vegan foods and was pretty terrible. The guests, who were not vegans, were unhappy over the food options. and were also a little annoyed that the wedding was being held in a field in the middle of July when it was about 98 degrees and 100% humidity. No tents, no cover from the sun, just a field and a bunch of picnic tables. The real kicker was when the bride and groom gave a speech on how meat is murder instead of a "hey guys, thank you all for coming to celebrate with us" speech. Please like and subscribe for more Reddit videos.